Hey, Eva Humphreys here. I'm a BANT Registered Nutritionist and have teamed up with Good Hemp for a series of educational videos. This one takes a look at a few nutrition tips that may help to power your workouts. To support the exercise that you're doing, we need to consider three main factors: protein, essential fats, vitamins, and minerals. In their own right, all three of these are mega topics, so I'm going to give you a flying overview of a few select aspects. First up, we have protein. Protein is incredibly crucial to the human body because literally everything that we are is protein-based. Our bones, our muscles, our internal organs, our skin, our hair, our nails, they are all protein-based, as are things like red blood cells and our immune system. So we know we need protein to be able to build muscle or to even just be able to repair from the exercise that we've just done. The current recommended daily intake of protein is somewhere around 4 to 6 grams of protein for women per day and 55 grams of protein per day for men. This vaguely translates to 0.75 grams per kilo of body weight per day, which is a lot of maths. Now, if we look at the study on the right-hand side, this specifically looks at dietary protein for athletes. Now, whether you're an athlete or not, or just happen to exercise for an hour a day, we know that we need a slightly increased level of protein to be able to compensate and repair our body. So in this study, they highlighted the range of protein to be somewhere around 1.3 to 1.8 grams per kilo of body weight per day. Even more maths, but vaguely, this is about twice the recommended daily intake of protein for men and women. A further aspect of this study looked at those trying to drop body fat. So this may be in a bodybuilding capacity or perhaps a fighter trying to weigh in at a certain weight and needing to lose a lot of weight very quickly. We know that if calories are dropped too low, the body doesn't just lose fat, it can also waste muscle. So to counteract this, the recommendation for protein intake increases for those that are at a high caloric deficit. Now it can go as high as 1.8 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight, which was touted to preserve muscle when there is a big need for fat loss. However we look at it, protein is absolutely crucial to building muscle and repairing. Irrespective of how good your maths was in trying to figure out how many grams of protein you need exactly per day, one thing stands: we need to increase our protein intake to compensate for the exercise that we are doing. And the good thing about hemp protein in specific is that it can be stirred into almost any meal, sweet or savory. There are 3 proteins in the range, and you can incorporate any of them into things like stews, soups, curries, or even smoothies, whatever takes your fancy. The pure 85% hemp protein contains up to 21 grams of protein per 25-gram portion. I've hinted that protein is crucial for repair, but here are a couple of studies just to illustrate 2 points. They are slightly opposing, so bear with me. The one on the left-hand side looked at protein for exercise and recovery. They actually touted that adding protein during, prior, and after a workout can help with recovery. The study on the right-hand side is a more comprehensive overview of physical performance, and in this one they actually found there is insufficient evidence to be adding protein prior and during exercise, and actually the one with the most supported evidence is to consume protein after exercising in order to support repair and make up for that increased protein need. One thing that's worth your consideration when it comes to increasing protein is the relative sustainability of those protein sources. The one thing I can tell you about hemp is that it is incredibly sustainable. I've actually taken this screenshot from the Good Hemp website, so if this site interests you, please do check it out online. To summarize, hemp captures CO2 more than trees. There is absolutely no waste because every part of the plant can be used. There is no pesticides. Hemp is a really robust plant, so it doesn't require pesticides to grow. It can also fix nitrogen into the soil, and wildlife love it. Aside from protein, there is a further macronutrient that is worth paying attention to, and that is fats, especially essential fats. Now, we can convert almost anything to fats, but there is a specific group of fats that we cannot make, and they are the essential fats, omega-3s and omega-6s, and a few other omega fats. I want to specifically draw your attention to omega-3 and omega-6 fats because they play a big role in inflammation and in the way that we repair. So just to recap, omega-3 and omega-6 fats are needed for the brain. We also need them for the nerves, eyes, and the immune system. They play a big part in inflammation in this capacity. Omega-6 fats are always present if there is inflammation. So say, for example, you hit that gym, you ripped up those muscles, and now you are nice and sore. That is a sign of inflammation. This is a good thing because inflammation shows that the body is trying to repair something. However, once it has done the repair job, we want to ensure that we calm down that inflammation. And this is where omega-3 fats come in. Omega-3 fats help to calm the inflammation and help to further assist with repair. The biggest thing that you need to consider about omega-3 and omega-6 fats is the relative ratio in which they are consumed. For example, our diets right now are really high in omega-6 fats. We get omega-6 fats from things like meat protein, from nuts and seeds, and from various other aspects. Omega-3s are higher in fish and shellfish. Luckily, hemp oil is a really good source of both, and it's actually in the correct ratio. So the correct ratio being somewhere around 3:1, 3 lots of omega-6 to 1 lot of omega-3. Again, a big topic, and if this interests you, please do look into omega-3 to omega-6 ratios in more detail. Here are a couple of studies on the topic of omega-3 and omega-6 fats. The one on the left-hand side looked specifically at muscle mass, muscle strength, and muscle performance in elderly men. This is a really good study group because the older you get, the harder it gets to build muscle and maintain strength. And what they found in this study is with higher intakes of omega-3, strength increased, and these men also increased their walking speed. So there was a definitive benefit to having more omega-3s in their diet. The one on the right-hand side looked at omega-3 fats and human skeletal muscle. In this one, they concluded that omega-3 fats have a preventative role in muscle loss. Another bonus. All right, let's take a look at a few vitamins and minerals. In specific, we're going to look at vitamin D, our sunshine vitamin, zinc, iron, and magnesium. There are others that help athletic performance, but these are the ones that I wanted to focus in on. The biggest thing I can tell you about vitamin D is to ensure that you have your levels checked. Vitamin D is only really available from the sun in the UK between 12 and 2 and only between March and November. During winter, we literally go into a vitamin D black hole, during which we cannot obtain vitamin D from the sun. Food sources of vitamin D aren't sufficient enough for us to be able to raise our levels. Having a vitamin D test is really easy, and once you establish what your vitamin D levels are, it's also equally easy to take a vitamin D supplement. In fact, Public Health England now advocate vitamin D supplementation during the winter months. Just a couple of studies to bring vitamin D into the context of exercise. So the one on the left-hand side was a meta-analysis, which means they looked at a really large pool of data as to how vitamin D may have an effect on exercise performance. And they found that there are improvements in strength at higher intake of vitamin D. The one on the right-hand side looked at specifically testosterone, and we know that testosterone, especially in men, is crucial for building muscle. Vitamin D has a supportive effect in testosterone. In fact, we need it to be able to produce testosterone efficiently. At low levels of vitamin D, testosterone levels were also lower. Now on to our good friend zinc. The illustration on the left-hand side shows all the areas that the human body requires zinc, which is everything. Everything requires zinc in the human body. It is absolutely crucial for repair, for the immune system, for digestive health, for hormones, and for healthy aging. In the context of exercise performance, more zinc is used up the longer that we exercise. This study on the left-hand side assessed zinc levels after exercise, and they found that actually following exercise, zinc levels were significantly lower, meaning if you're exercising, you do need a little bit more zinc. Similarly, the study on the right-hand side made note of the fact that increased levels of zinc are required by athletes to support exercise performance. This is where things may get a little bit confusing because answering how much zinc we need exactly is not really that possible. On the top left-hand side, I have taken the recommendation for daily zinc intake from the NHS. They recommend that men should consume 9.5 milligrams of zinc per day and women somewhere around 7 milligrams of zinc. But then on the bottom left-hand side, I have taken the data from Asia, and they are in the process of increasing the recommended daily intakes of zinc. On the right-hand side, we have the data from Australia. And in this, if you look across the 31 to 50 age group, you'll note that men are recommended to have 14 milligrams of zinc per day and women 8 milligrams of zinc. What I really like about this is that it differentiates between a general diet, or what they term the general diet, and a vegetarian or plant-based diet. Note that on a plant-based diet, the requirement for zinc increases. This is really down to the bioavailability of zinc from plant-based sources. Bioavailability simply refers to the amount that we can physically derive from a given food. All right, so we know that we need zinc. We're not quite sure how much zinc we need. We know that we need more of it when we exercise, but where do we get zinc from exactly? I have taken this table from an Australian database because it really nicely lists zinc values per 100 grams of any given food. It is upside down, so look from the bottom up. But as you can see, the number one listed food for zinc is oysters. They contain somewhere around 18 milligrams of zinc per 100 grams. This is followed by a few others like yeast, a different type of oyster, and then sun-dried tomatoes. I have put a slight question mark over sun-dried tomatoes because when I double-checked this data, it appeared that certain sun-dried tomatoes only really have 1 to 2 milligrams of zinc per 100 grams, which is vastly different. If we look over to hemp seeds, which are unfortunately not listed on this table, there are 9.9 milligrams of zinc per 100 grams of hemp seeds. And it is so easy just to throw a handful of hemp seeds on top of your food. I mentioned earlier that vegetarian diets don't have as great a bioavailability of zinc from the food. This is down to the fact that a lot of zinc-containing foods like nuts and pulses contain an anti-nutrient known as phytic acid. Phytic acid literally reduces the amount of zinc that you can physically get out of that food. It stops you from absorbing the zinc properly. In hemp seeds, there is no phytic acid. On to iron. Iron is more relevant for females. The study on the left-hand side takes into account that women actually require a bit more iron, but also female athletes need iron and a better iron status for athletic performance. We need iron for red blood cells for oxygen transport, both of which are correlated with athletic performance. When low, it can transpire to low mood, anxiety, fatigue, weakness, immune system issues, but also problems with joints and skin. Iron is needed in every single one of those steps to ensure that we stay healthy, but also perform well in terms of exercise. Women need approximately 15 milligrams of iron per day, depending on iron status, and men need sub 10 milligrams. So I've taken a table from the Australian database again to highlight the highest iron containing foods. This is from the bottom up again, but the one big issue with this is that many of these foods would be incredibly hard to consume in such high quantities. So the highest source being dried thyme, which would be almost impossible to eat, is 100 grams. Not to worry though, because the more realistic foods to consume that are high in iron would be things like chicken liver, which clocks in at 10 milligrams per 100 gram. Beefsteak, a food often associated with high iron levels, actually only really contains 3 milligrams per 100 grams. Hemp seeds contain 8 milligrams per 100 grams. Again, quite easy to get that into any food that you may be eating. There's just one thing to note with iron, and that there are certain things can really reduce the absorption of iron. One such area is zinc and calcium supplements, which can really reduce the amount of iron that we absorb from food. There are also anti-nutrients at play, so tannins, which are in tea and coffee and cocoa, can reduce our capacity to absorb iron. And vitamin C, on the other end of the spectrum, can increase our capacity to absorb iron. Vitamin C is pretty high in things like berries and red peppers. One last nutrient to consider is magnesium. Magnesium is our chill-out nutrient. It helps blood vessels dilate and it helps us really relax. It's also good for nerves. We need it for muscle, including muscles of the cardiovascular system. And we also need it to form bone. Magnesium is pretty low in the average diet, but when it comes to exercise, we need more of it because we use more of it up as we do our exercises. Hemp seeds contain a whopping 700 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams, which translates to twice the recommended daily intake for women and 1.6 times the recommended daily intake for men. Magnesium is also in leafy greens and a few other foods like nuts and seeds. A couple of bits of science for your consideration. So the study on the left-hand side, this was a really neat study because they assessed strength following resistance training with magnesium supplementation. They actually found that it may increase strength. So in this study, they measured bench press and it showed a significant increase of 17.7% in bench press strength. On the right-hand side, a pilot study looked at rates of recovery with higher intakes of magnesium, and they found that magnesium also helps with muscle recovery. To recap all of this, we discussed the requirement for vitamin D, for increased levels of zinc, for iron, especially for females, and also for magnesium. There are a few other nutrients that play part in athletic performance and in exercise performance, but it's almost too much to mention as part of this video. They would be calcium, selenium, vitamin C, and B vitamins. Last but not least, sleep plays a huge role in recovery. Not just in recovery, but it can actually help to improve performance. So this study on the left-hand side, which looked at CrossFitters, noted that correct sleep or higher quality sleep improved both technical and overall performance. It's pretty neat considering it is just sleep. The only thing we need to make sure of is that we get really good quality versions of it. And there are 3 nutrients that really support our sleep, those being zinc, vitamin C, and magnesium. Zinc and magnesium we have discussed in greater detail. Vitamin C is plentiful in berries, cherries, and also red peppers. Emerging research looks at CBD in relation to sleep. In this specific study, featured on the left-hand side, 72 individuals took part, and out of those, 48 noted improvements in sleep with CBD use. This concludes nutritional strategies for improving exercise performance. I hope you enjoyed this video and don't forget to check out the rest in the series.